Welcome to the Evo India podcast. And today we got a special guest, my dear friend Vivek Srivatsa, who's the Chief Commercial Officer at Tata Passenger Electric Mobility. Vivek, welcome to the Evo India studio.
Thank you, Sirish. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You've just done the flag off for the Punch, the recently updated Punch with the the turbo petrol engine. I'm actually looking forward to driving it immediately after we finish the podcast, and I'm going to go out and drive that as well as the CNG. So that's something I'm looking forward to. So in this podcast, we're going to not talk about just Tata Motors or just the Sierra, because obviously we've got to talk about the Sierra, but we're going to talk about the life of an automotive executive in the Indian automotive industry. Where do you start off? What do you study? How do you go through the ladder? What are the different roles and tasks that an automotive exec is assigned and tasked with delivering? How do you plan for the future? Because obviously now you're planning for maybe 2030, or at least 5 years from now, you already have plans in place. So how do you think about the future? How do you plan? And everything is dynamic. Everything changes tomorrow. There might be some new rules and you might have to go through a rejig. So how do you account for it and deal with all of that? So I hope that we can be a little candid in this podcast. Let's start with Vivek. Were you always a car guy? What did you study?
Yeah, I graduated from in electronics from Bangalore University. So not a typical automotive education, I would say. But you said, when did I start liking automotive? I think right from the time I can remember, I was one of those kids who had cars and anything mobile in my blood, I could, I remember, make out the cars. I mean, those days it was Ambis and probably Fiats, and then the Maruti 800 started coming in. I could make out which car it is by the sound of the engine. I mean, not whether it's ambassador, which particular ambassador in the street it was, loved trains, loved engines, everything, of course, bikes. So I think it was kind of destined that I'll end up in automotive.
So what was your first job out of college?
I actually, like I said, I graduated in electronics. I joined a company called BPL, who were, manufacturing in India electronics in tie-up with Sanyo. So I actually had an option to work in the plant there because I had an electronics background to assemble VCRs and VCRs. And those days VCRs were very high tech. You had printed circuit boards and automated welding and all that. It was high tech those days. But very soon I realized I can't be doing the same thing every day. So chose to move to sales and marketing. So was doing sales and marketing for BPL in Bangalore. And then again, my second posting was in a place called Goa in the 90s. So people couldn't believe that I was working in Goa. And Goa was much more exotic those days compared to what it is now. But close to a year in Goa, I had to make a life choice, whether I become a Goan or I become a mainstream Indian. Unfortunately, I think I made the wrong choice and moved out. So moved across the country with, I joined another multinational electronics company called Philips. All of us know Philips. Those days, they already were in India for 100 years, actually. Joined them and was with them for a very long stint, moved across the country, different roles. Spent 13 years in Philips, actually.
13 years?
13 years.
Okay.
Different sales roles, and then moved to marketing in Philips. And then moved to Maruti Suzuki in 2007. And post that, it's been a journey in automotive.
Maruti Suzuki must have been, like, if you want to step into the automotive industry, back then, Maruti Suzuki must have been like the ultimate posting,
Absolutely.
right? Because they were like the giant, the behemoth. What were the cars back then that were like selling strongly?
When I joined Maruti, it was still the Maruti 800. Alto was there, WagonR. Desire was just launched.
Okay.
Desire was launched after I joined
Mm.
Maruti Suzuki. Swift was going great guns.
Okay.
I launched the Rids for them.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we got the Alto K10.
What were the
So
challenges then for Maruti?
the challenges, I think Maruti was just getting into facing a few challenges.
Okay.
It was that period where the market was transitioning from, you know, place where there's more demand than production to a place where actually you had to create demand. The early competition from General Motors with the Mattis converted to Beat. Was it Mattis? Yeah, it was.
Yes,
Mattis,
it was the facelift. Yeah.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
General Motors bought over Daewoo, then the Beat came in.
Yeah, Beat came in with a
And it also had a
1
diesel
liter engine.
Yeah.
1 liter engine. It created quite a bit of competition for Alto, Wagoner, and all that. And hence they probably needed somebody from consumer electronics who had the hustle. Those days consumer electronics was a real penetration, I would say, industry. Where we are talking about how do you get deeper into the country and all that. So I was handling Alto 800 to compete with GM.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you do in terms of making the products more aspirational for, say, tier 2? Like you said, trying to penetrate deeper into India. What were the activations that you did?
One, of course, is to ensure that the reach was there. That we started having smaller outlets in smaller towns. Second was to make finance easier.
Okay.
Those days, getting loans for smaller towns was quite a challenge. So how do you get finance available, and also try to reduce the EMIs the most? Even getting a loan with a tenure of 6 years was difficult. So Maruti had that little bit of push and little bit of influence over the finance companies to be able to deliver 6-year tenures. So we tried to reduce the EMI quite a bit. And on the product side, the 800cc engine was, has what was in the market for a long time, but consumers were starting to crave for a little bit more power, and that's when the Alto K10 was launched, and that really did well. Suddenly you had a familiar Alto, which was affordable, but also released performance. I remember you were there at the media drive, and suddenly K10 was this pocket rocket, and that really changed I would say, enabled Maruti to strengthen itself in the smaller towns.
We all think of marketing in terms of advertising and all the front-facing things that you do. But marketing is the department that talks to the finance companies and does all this in the background. That's something new for probably a lot of our audience.
Yeah, I think at the core, marketing is the demand generator for any organization. So whether it is the kind of product you make, at the core is also it's a department which understands the consumer need. Who's the consumer, what are their needs today, and what are their needs for the future. How can you make products that address today's and future needs? And in auto industry, the product cycles are long, right? When you conceptualize products which will be launched 3 years down the line and will continue for maybe another 10 years. So you're actually thinking maybe 10 years and beyond in terms of consumer needs. So we are one of those departments which have to have a long-term vision, but also talk about today and tomorrow. So that's the challenge. So like I said, demand creation, demand fulfillment, making the consumer realize that this is a real need and this is the product that addresses your need is the way I would define marketing. Yeah. And in automotive, it is even more challenging because of the long cycle times. A huge amount of investments. So the cost of not getting it right is very, very high in auto. It's high in terms of financial pain, but also high in terms of consumer perception, because we are one of those industries which are out there in the market. It's not a television set which is inside the home, and if it goes wrong, people don't know too much. If a car is broken down in the middle of the road, or a car doesn't sell too much, it's very public. So it's both the boon and bane of the auto industry, I would say. Yeah, where if you sell well, it's everywhere, but otherwise it's very visible that the fact that the car is not done too well. Yeah.
After Maruti,
Yeah.
you then joined Renault.
Yeah.
What were you doing at Renault?
Yeah. So at that point, Renault had the first stint which didn't go well. I think they had a partnership with Mahindra. That didn't go well. They wanted to come back fully by themselves, and they were looking at somebody to head marketing. So I was more than happy to take up the challenge because it was again starting off the brand from the scratch, literally the scratch, a clean sheet of paper. Joined them as head of marketing, helped reintroduce the brand to India. Again, launched a series of products. The first 5 products, many of them are not there now, but those days were, launching a product every year for 4 years was quite a cadence those days. All of us know how well the Duster did. I think it really changed the face of Maruti.
Of Renault.
Renault. And was very closely working on the Kwid as well till the time it was launched. Then I moved to Dubai to manage marketing for Middle East and North Africa.
Working on the Kwid must have been a real eye-opener because that was the first time a multinational came in with this low-cost agenda and heavy localization and doing everything locally,
Absolutely.
except for maybe the styling, but doing everything here. What did you learn from there?
Yeah, I think in fact there was more learning from Maruti, which was up, which paid off there with the Kwid as well. In terms of being smart, in terms of what are the areas we could cut costs and what are the areas make customer feel special despite it being a low cost car. Something as simple as keeping the doors very thin. At that point of time, when I just go back to what we did in Maruti, when we launched the Alto K10, we also had a cost reduced Alto 800 in the market. And it was, I don't want to get into specific numbers, but it was an education for me on how to reduce cost. Nobody does it as well as the Japanese. The one simple thing they do is they associate. Now it is known well, but those days associating weight with cost was a very simple yardstick that they do. And so while the car was being measured in grams, the money was being measured later elsewhere. So that helped a lot even in Kwid. I was very fortunate to have a lot of interaction with the legendary Gerard Detobe those days. He was based in Chennai, and we had many sessions on how to make the Kwid right, feel good, but at the same time not obviously cost reduced. Very, very exciting times. Renault was used to making low cost cars for Europe, Eastern Europe. But I think with Gerard and with Kwid, it went to a completely different level.
Would you say that Maruti is like, for anybody in the automotive industry, Maruti is a great learning, like an academy, a university?
Absolutely. See, it's also a perspective, right? Philips appeared to be a very big organization, European multinational, and I thought, and coming from consumer electronics, that was a big thing. But Maruti really showed me what scale is. At that point of time, they were making close to 700,000 cars. I remember it was some 3,000 odd cars per day or something like that from the Gurgaon plant. And it taught me also how process works. I can say that in Maruti process, and I mean, sometimes you get the feeling that people are irrelevant. The process will make things happen. Everybody does a very little value add, but the process takes it through. And that is the biggest learning. If you put the, end-to-end process in place, account for all deviations, things will just work. And that is the most efficient way to manufacture. So a huge amount of learning, and I'm still very, very indebted to that learning from Maruti. Great set of people. I mean, even now friends with many, many of them. I think wonderful organization that way. And also a hungry organization, I would say. They could have just, said that we are doing well and relax, but they have continuously pushed the industry to grow. I think that's another great thing. So yes, fantastic university of learning, automotive industry from Maruti. Yeah.
after Renault,
Yeah.
after your stint in Dubai, you came back to Mumbai, came back to
Tata
Bombay,
Motors.
and to Tata Motors.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What did you see in Tata Motors as like a stepping stone for your career, and also what you could implement to grow Tata Motors? Because back then, if I recall right, Tata Motors weren't in the best of health.
Yeah, that's right. They were not in the best of health, but they were also determined to, you know, make a breakthrough. I think they had gone through 4 5 years of very difficult times. Few launches hadn't worked, and few refreshes hadn't worked. They had to go back to the previous generation product. Uh, they were also being, forced to sell more into the fleet segment to keep the numbers growing. But what made me positive was the series of launches that was being planned. Very ambitious launches, I would say. Today, these products are well known. They had the Nexon in the anvil. They had the Tiago in the anvil. Hexa was there. The Harrier and Harrier was being planned at that point of time. So very, very, and those days, obviously, Harrier was, a derivative of the Discovery.
Yes.
So very exciting portfolio coming up, and it was a little bit of a refreshed management as well. So when I spoke to, the management team, then it looked not only confidence but also a lot of hunger and I would say determination. So I really felt that I could add value, and it gave me the confidence to join Tata Motors.
So that was the time when Mayank Parekh had taken over as president at Tata Motors,
Yeah.
and Mayank is like a
Yeah.
legend of the automotive industry,
Yeah.
and he came from Maruti, so
Yes.
obviously you would have had that Maruti connection there.
Yes, Mayank recruited me in Maruti as well, and
Okay.
then in Tata Motors as well. Yeah, so there was that equation which worked. Yeah.
How was at the start? How different was Tata Motors, the processes, the working culture? How different was it from Maruti?
Tata Motors is the definition of hustle. Once they are determined to get something done, it'll happen. Come what may. It is a company where people come together when there is a crisis. And they work incredibly together to overcome hurdles. It's also a great company in terms of giving autonomy. I keep telling my team as well that automotive companies are traditionally driven by huge amount of processes. Sometimes the processes are just holding you back. Whereas in Tata Motors is the other way. At every level, if you have an idea, you have every opportunity to execute it. So it's not just a company that fosters ideas, it's also a company which gives freedom to people to execute it. The fear of failure is probably the lowest I've seen across any of the companies I've worked with. People can do their own thing. In fact, the pressure on people in Tata Motors is think differently, think of new solutions to old problems, go ahead and execute it, don't wait for okays from your superiors. So I think it's a very, very different company in terms of how to approach a traditional industry which has been steeped in processes and tradition, and this is the way to do it. Repeatedly it finds new ways and new solutions to old problems.
You mentioned when you started off at Tata Motors, the
Yeah.
Indica was still there.
Yeah.
And the Indica was then maybe sunsetted in year, 2 years or something like that. The Nano was still around.
Still around. Yeah.
And the Nano was still a big talking point.
Yes.
Even though it was around for a bit,
Yeah.
but it was still a huge talking point, right?
Yeah.
And the global lens was on it. The Nano needed work.
Yeah.
Did you bring your marketing perspective and consumer insight perspective to the Nano to address certain
Not
things?
so much, I would say, because at that point of time, there were attempts to make Nano ready for the newer emission norms, the crash pedestrian norms. But we realized it was going to be too expensive, and it would completely remove the Nano from the core value proposition. So it was kind of heading into a sunset. But Safari was still there, the earlier version, and that is something which really surprised me. We did some marketing work again, refresh the the old earlier campaigns, we
Mm.
brought it back, and any small campaigns on Safari created a big jump in sales.
Mm.
So that brand name still had a lot of, I would say, appeal.
Mm.
Even though the product was getting a little long in the tooth,
Mm.
the brand name still had a lot of value. Indica, of course, it was running. It was an old horse which was still running. Of course, more in the fleet, but the amount of trust that product had in the fleet is amazing.
Mhm.
So it continued to sell very standard volumes
Mm.
every month. I can see why Tata Motors kept,
Mm.
running that product,
Mm.
because it was there for the taking. There was no other product which was so suited to a fleet
Mhm.
as Indica diesel, or
Mm.
even
Mm.
the Indigo diesel, I
Mm.
would say.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, so
Eventually, you sunsetted the Indica.
yeah.
How difficult was it to such a important brand name or nameplate for Tata Motors? How difficult was it to sunset it, or was it easy because the Indica had now become this taxi car?
Yeah, but there's always sentiment, right?
Mm.
The sentiment not only internally within the company, even for consumers.
Mm-hmm.
There are, of course, it was selling in fleet at that point of time, but there are a lot of people who would have bought the Indica.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, my first car was an Indica before
Okay.
when I was in Philips.
Mm.
So this consumer sentiment. That's why I think in auto industry you will never see a company announcing that I'm sunsetting a brand.
Mm. Mm.
It's kind of subtly implemented.
Mm. Mm.
It is definitely difficult from
Mm.
many perspectives.
Mm.
Like I said, internal sentiment, consumer sentiment,
Mhm.
the financial implication, because every single brand would have seen a lot of money being poured into making the brand
Mm.
visible to consumers.
Mm.
So I think sunsetting is like a human
Mhm.
going away.
Mm. Mm.
It's
Mm.
never easy.
Mm.
It's never easy. Yeah.
And you must have had to make a lot of tough calls then, because it was the Indica that went, the Nano went, the Safari also went, the Hexa went, and the Hexa came and went. Like, it was a very short time.
Short life. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, because like even the Hexa today has got, those who have the Hexa really talk in very high
Yeah.
opinion about the car. Those must have also gone into a game plan for the future of Tata Motors, because you must have been like the automotive industry. You all think what, 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead? What is your
Even more. Like I said, you conceptualize a product. For it to come into production, it takes 3 to 4
mm,
years. And then the life cycle is infinite, actually.
yeah.
It can go on 10 years or beyond.
So when you sunsetted these
Yeah.
brands, you were obviously thinking about the Harrier and the Safari to come back again. That time I think it was called Gravitas or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and then you all
Yeah.
pivoted to the
Yeah.
Safari name. When did work start on? So let's talk about the revival of Tata Motors. The Nexon was probably like one of the biggest high points. When you came in, was the Nexon planning already in process?
It was midway, I would say, or little more than midway. We already knew uh, the design, the
Mm-hmm.
name was in place,
Mm.
largely. Um, just the final tuning in terms of
Mm.
which powertrain,
Mm.
where to offer,
Mm.
what are the kind of price
Mm.
bands and all
Mm.
that. So I was in the last 1 year with the
Mm.
Nexon. Yes, we were always very positive about the Nexon, because in the Auto Expo, it received very, very strong
Mm.
response.
Mm.
And those were the days when the 4-meter SUV space was heating up.
Mm.
There were a couple of competitors were really doing well. Of course, we had a very design-oriented approach to the Nexon, right? It was actually a coupe at that point of time. So it was a typical Tata Motors innovative design solution. So we were not like, um, you know, uh, let me be honest, we never thought it will become one of the largest selling cars in the country. We knew it will do well, but we always thought it will remain slightly larger than a niche, not mainstream. But I think it's also kudos to the design integration. It is a different design, but not unpalatable or not very niche. It's a design which has grown on people over a long time. So I think, Nexon was real turnaround, beginning of the turnaround, I would say.
So, as marketing, during the conceptualization phase of the Nexon, what does marketing do?
How to present it to the customer. When you approach the market to create a disruptive solution like Tata Motors,
Mm.
it's not a very obvious need that we are solving, right? So it makes it slightly more challenging, to tell the customer, okay, you have a need. This is the solution you think. We have a different kind of solution, but actually it works for you very well. So that is the challenge. So for Nexon, we had to, we had to explain to the customer that it's got the style of a coupe, but it had all the practicality of a 4-meter SUV. So that was the message we had to land. Fortunately, we had very disruptive powertrain options. At that point of time, we came with diesel, petrol, and AMTs on both, larger diesel engines, turbocharged petrol. So there were a lot of proof points in terms of its SUV capability. The one thing which had to land was the design. And I think it was a slow cook in terms of design. It was not an instant success, but it kind of grew on customers, and now customers are very happy. So that is a challenge, when you come with disruptive solutions, that initial phase where you have to kind of get a certain threshold level of consumer acceptance is the challenge, I would say.
Yeah.
But like the other flip side of that is you're able to present something extremely different from what is there. So you automatically kind of get attention as well. You're not presenting the same box. You're presenting something very different. So it's easier to get attention, but it is tougher to convince customers that it'll work.
The Nexon also gave you the platform for electrification. Obviously, before that, you had the Tigor. That was your first electric vehicle. I want to talk about that whole move and not exactly shift, but that focus on electrification. Because back then, it was Mahindra who were the leaders in electrification, the Logan, which became the E-Verito and all that. So that was the kind of mainstream electric car. You guys won that ELSS contract with the
ESL, yeah. ESL, yeah.
ESL, yeah, contract with the Tigor, the EV.
Yeah.
And you all made the Tigor after that, after you got the contract. But that was for that very niche segment.
Yeah.
The Nexon is what put electrification into public consciousness.
Yeah.
How did that whole story of electrification at Tata Motors come about? Where did the first thought come about that, yes, we have to go all guns blazing for electrification? You didn't have infinite amount of money then because things were tight back then. So you obviously had to stop something to divert that funds towards EV. And if that hadn't worked out, it would have been like a big problem for you.
Yeah.
Give us that story that we don't know.
So I think it started off with this very small set of people. Sailesh was leading that actually, where we felt that we probably could participate with the ESL. It's a great way to understand what is possible. And like only Tata Motors can do, the product was turned around in 3 months. But that was, of course, that was the initial product. But I think it gave us opened up the window that what could be possible in an EV. And then it was a more mainstream approach on the Nexon. There was not that much time pressure. It was not 3 months, but I think it was a little bit more than a year. But obviously the Nexon was launched with a 30 kilowatt battery, which became, I think, the first mainstream proper electric car in the market. Till then, consumers always looked at electric car as something almost like a toy car, or like a source of entertainment or something like that. I think that was the turning point, the Nexon. Turning point, of course, for the consumer, that you could get a real electric car which could do more than 200 kilometers at just a 25% increase. Many people did not realize how efficient driving an electric car is in terms of cost of operation. If you plug in, it suddenly was like 1/10 of the cost. That many people, even internally in Tata Motors, we didn't realize till the Nexon came out. So I think that was when the beliefs started. So kudos to that small set of people who started believing after the ESL. Even more kudos to the people who made the ESL car in 3 months. I think there was, a lot of push from right above, I would say, to make it happen. And what started off as, I would say, trying out something, um, ended up as a genuine, business opportunity, I would say. But it was the way the consumers reacted to the Nexon, when it was launched. Completely new technology. Nobody had any idea on how it'll work, but consumers just loved it. I mean, I remember those days it was just pressure on production because there was so much of demand in the initial days. Uh, but of course, also kudos to that small group of people led by Sailesh to conceptualize the entire ecosystem. The first question is, okay, I have an electric car, where do I charge it? So the ability to provide home charging, I think, was the game changer.
Okay.
It's not easy, right? First of all, consumers' homes can be anywhere. To be able to provide a charger in their parking lot means, of course, that physical work. If it's an independent house, it's easy. City like Bombay, you have only apartment complexes. Interaction with them, interaction with the electricity boards, which can be a nightmare. So the way the entire liaising was conceptualized with Tata Power, with the manufacturer of the charging box, how the various inconsistencies in wiring and voltages and all that, inconsistencies in power supply. Incredible job. If you really look at it, it is like on ground work, which was again process put up. There was a process put and it worked. I think 99.99% of consumers never had problem with home charging. I think that was the whole thing. The Nexon EV the EVs are inherently once you get the fundamentals right, they are very, very stable tech, right? It'll just work.
Headache free.
It becomes like an electrical accessory.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll just work. So that initial stability really helped. Consumers were delighted. I'm driving my car, no sound, 1/10 of the cost, fantastic power. So I think the delight factors of the early customers is what the motivating factor for us internally. And after that, the game, right? We just kept enhancing.
So
Yeah.
the success of electrification,
Yeah.
and back then when the Nexon EV came about, that time globally there was a huge movement towards electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Also on the business side, there were all these private equity funds that wanted to invest in electrification.
Yeah.
And that enabled Tata Motors to spin off the
Yeah.
EV side,
Yeah.
also get PE funding for it.
Yeah.
And that helped to grow the business, because then you have the money to finance new product development.
Absolutely.
You were then moved to the electric side of
Yeah.
the business.
That's
you
true.
were looking after the entire ecosystem.
Sales, marketing, and strategy.
and service
Yeah,
also.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Service strategy. Yeah.
Right? What was different in the electric side of the business compared to the combustion side of the business?
Yeah. So firstly, before even the PE firms could look, started analyzing the business, it was about also manufacturing. While I said that on-ground implementation of chargers and all were very good, the big work happened in our ability to manufacture electric vehicles, get the cells, assemble the cells, get the software, BMS software right, localize as much as possible. Nobody had localized battery, assemblies, So that was another big, I think Tata Motors really showed the way there. How you could get these different components together, localize, achieve a certain cost structure. When scale wasn't there, you conceptualize scale and then get a cost, right? So if that hadn't happened, PE firms would never have invested, so that was a big thing. Yes, fortunately, we got investments, and for me personally, I was, to be honest, I didn't understand electric mobility before 2020. I thought that probably it could never scale. We've heard that of the Teslas and all that. Those days, even Tesla had just the Roadster and probably the Model S, probably. Huge car. I thought the car has to be huge because the battery needs to be huge to have that. You know, I could never conceptualize a compact car with a battery. I always thought that it'll never have enough battery to do 50 kilometers, you know. So that opened my eyes, you know. So coming down to the role, it was very fascinating. And on the consumer side, we had to do a lot of myth busting, as we said, you know. Electric plus monsoon is a scare, you know. That was the biggest scare in consumers. What will happen if my battery gets submerged, you know? So it was a huge thing. And of course, this association of electric cars with fires, you know, that was another big thing. Range anxiety continues. You know, those days it was at its peak. What happens if my battery suddenly stops working? You know, suddenly drains out. So we had to do a lot of myth busting. But I'll tell you, the early customers were our biggest ambassadors. You know, they braved it out. You know, those in 2022, people used to do pan-India journeys, you know, with very minimal infrastructure, probably charging out of even a 15 amp socket, you know. It was incredible. Tata Power also did a lot of work in putting up charging infrastructure across the way. So my role in the marketing side was to make consumers believe. On the sales side, it is to get dealer attention to EVs, you know. The mainstream ICE cars were fairly commoditized, you know. The only question you had to answer was about certain features, maybe the price and all that. But on EVs, it was like selling electronic gadget, you know. You had to answer questions on software, question on, you know, tech, which our dealers were not used to. So we, you know, appoint a new team, huge amount of training given to them to handle EV customers. EV customers were people who had researched everything. They were consumers who knew more about the product than the person selling them. So that balance had to be struck. On the service side also, you know, I mean, the ability to, you know, manage the, I would say, supply chain of batteries, you know, in case batteries went bad, how do you replace the entire unit? Do you replace individual cells? Yeah, you know, the timeline of battery replacement was really painful. For the first time, you had to implement software to, you know, make a vehicle roadworthy. So that entire thing, reach of EV service also was a challenge. You know, how do you ensure that you have base for EVs everywhere? While we were selling them in certain towns, the cars were actually going much deeper. You know? So the whole thing was like a scale up kind of a situation.
You obviously would have learned a lot from customers.
Yeah.
What were those learnings that went into developing your next range of EVs?
On EVs?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think the learning from consumers, the main thing we saw is that once consumers start driving an EV, their belief in the tech is like a hockey stick. You know, they absolutely goes through the roof. So, and then they start evangelizing EVs. So that is something. The second point is that very quickly we realized that more than the charging location, it is also the charging speed, which remains an issue even now. I think it's like mobile phone coverage, you know. You can keep giving as many charging points as you want, but you always need more. And also the same with speed, you know. At one point of time, 7 kilowatt AC charging was good enough, but now even 60 kilowatt DC is not good enough. So I think that is another need that keeps going up. The other point we saw was consumers' driving behavior completely changed with EVs. They became better drivers, light on the accelerator, very conscious. You will see them, you know, going at 80 kilometers on the highway. I'm not saying that's the best, but driving behavior completely changed. Of course, the early EV buyers were also hugely environmentally conscious. These are people who really believe that, you know, no emission and stuff like that. So yes, they did teach us the balance of these elements. Early EV buyers also wanted a very differentiated buying experience, ownership experience. I always joke that on the ICE side, the consumer doesn't want to talk about the car to anybody else after he buys. He or she buys, because that means the car is perfectly fine. If a consumer is talking about the car, ICE car, after he buys, that means there's a problem. You know, but EV, it's the other way around. You know, they want to talk. They say, oh, you know, I did so many uh, kilometers and so much charge, and kilometers per watt becomes so much, or the other way around, watt hours per kilometer, So these things, the EV consumer is very, very different, highly interactive, highly social. That's why the EV groups are very, very active. So very different experience, I would say, from how these consume. They are buying a mobility product, but they are a completely different animal. Yeah.
But also, if there's an issue, they tend to make a tremendous noise about
around
it,
yeah.
right?
They hold the manufacturer accountable. They talk about it a lot. So it's both two sides of the knife. They do evangelize the product and the tech, but they also keep you very, very accountable. And I think in the long run, it has helped us scale up. Without the strong feedback from consumers, we wouldn't have been pushed to scale up as much as we did. Yeah.
The Nexon was like a big success story. I'll jump a few years to the Sierra. Now, let's talk about marketing as a department. When the Sierra project was being conceptualized, what was marketing's role in it? Was marketing the department that put the Sierra tag on it? Did marketing say that we have to bring back the Sierra? How did the name start?
See, this actually started off around 2020, where obviously a lot of uncertainty around COVID, and internally we had this, mantra, how to manage the COVID years, and then post that, how do we grow? Obviously, money available either for product development or for marketing was less at that point of time. So that's where, a crisis really develops a lot of innovative, frugal thinking. One of the good things was we went back to our heritage and said that we have these brands. It's a great time for us to revive them, bring them back, bring the spirit of these brands back. So Safari came back, and then we started working ground up on the Sierra. And role of marketing those days was to understand what the spirit of the Sierra was. The reality is Sierra was in the market at a very different age, right? That was the age where just to move with four wheels from point A to point B was a luxury. And this came in at probably 5 times the cost of a Maruti 800 those days. But still, and to be honest, we have not sold too many Sierras. But the kind of image it had was almost like a legend, So how do you really understand what it means and get that spirit back, imbibe the product with that kind of spirit, but also modernize it, contemporize it, and ensure that it survives and be relevant for the next 10, 15 years. So I would say design, engineering, marketing, and product development, all of us worked very closely together in this. And it was not front-ended by any one need, but everybody kind of understood that the spirit should be the same, but still we modernize it. I think that is what marketing kind of drove in that.
Now, obviously, your styling studios in the UK and in India, they put together the design. When you saw the first designs, then you must have also had inputs considering your consumer requirements.
Yeah.
What were they that helped to make
Obviously,
the product what it was?
at that point of time, the first Sierra you saw was an EV version,
Yes.
and then we started saying that we need to make it more mainstream. We need to have ICE as well. And then we said we'll give it, probably our best powertrain options, So it developed gradually, I would say, because the thinking was Sierra was always a halo product for us. We can't today go 5x of the median price, right? That means we'll go to 60 lakhs. We wanted it to become a mainstream product, but still maintain the aura of the Sierra brand. So that was the balance that we wanted to strike. So give disruptive powertrain options, disruptive tech, but also be disruptive in terms of what the package is. Sierra has always stood for comfort, lounge-like backseat, very disruptive kind of a, visibility around it, So these are the fundamentals that we all stuck to a lot. So I think what you see today is definitely a modern version, but these fundamentals of having that huge amount of space inside, extremely comfortable rear seat, disruptive level of technologies in terms of powertrains. Obviously we've introduced 2 or 3 different powertrains for the Sierra. Then that huge sunroof, the overall, airy kind of cabin inside, tech also, in terms of. So I think we've managed to achieve that balance where the Sierra is a mainstream product, but also comes with that halo of different aspects, which is substantially above what the market median is. So that is the balance, I think, which has worked. Yeah.
Your designation, your title has Tata Passenger Electric Mobility, but you're obviously working on the combustion side of things also. What is the overlap? How does the Tata Motors structure work?
I mean, it is little internal, but yeah, it is about being employed by a certain company, but you also have matrix responsibilities, where many of us, it's not only me, there are many of us which are employed by TPAM, but we work basis our competencies and our skill sets for both across the company, I would say. So I think it is a very smart use of skill sets and manpower, and all of us are got used to having this kind of matrix structures. Yeah.
So you spoke about when the Sierra was shown as a concept, it was as an EV.
Yeah.
And those days, say 2020, 2022, EV was like the thing to do. The government was also making huge noises for EV. In fact, saying they're going to bulldoze stuff to get EVs in place. But then the conversation shifted to a not very positive outlook towards EVs. When did you see that shift happening? And in your estimation, understanding, why did that conversation shift to the other side of the fence?
I think a lot to do with international, sentiments. It was never easy to bring down the cost. First of all, I think EV being a new tech, and people have been driving cars a certain way for more than 100 years. It's not easy to change. If you look at other areas where this change has happened, maybe mobile telephony, from dialing phones to mobile phones, the new tech has been implemented in an extremely painless manner. You didn't have to fundamentally change the way you dial people. If you go back to earlier phones with the buttons, you still had buttons too. You just didn't have the cord. Otherwise you had, so you had the benefit of having a phone which is not tethered to a wire, but fundamentally it worked the same. I think in EVs the kind of behavioral change needed was very, very high. Second is, you're talking about a lot of uncertainty. I think the combination between cost and charge has did not develop at the speed that people expected. Third is, if you force down anything, there's going to be a resistance. And fortunately or unfortunately, driving is a pleasure, along with a core, along with being a job. So if you force people to make a change in something that they enjoy, it's not going to land. But most importantly, I think tech change was not very seamless. It called for a lot of behavioral change, a lot of question marks. Infrastructure has not kept up. Cost has not gone down. The other big change you see in tech is, if it calls for behavioral change, you need to give a very, very huge change in cost. Probably goes down half or even lower. It's not happened so much on the EV side. So I think the transition has not been as seamless or as smooth, as easy as imagined. But having said that, I think when you look at a larger picture, EVs are definitely probably 30 years from now, you'll only have EVs because, with green energy and efficient electric mobility, that's the only pollution-free, I would say, mobility solution. You might still have the antique ICE engines going around, but I think the transition is going to take much longer because of the factors I just said.
Are you still convinced about EVs, and are you still convinced that the focus has to be on EVs?
Definitely, I think these are 4 or 5 different lines of work that has to converge. One is the vehicle itself. Second is the battery pack. How do you maximize the battery capacity at the lowest cost? Third is charging solutions. Fourth is ability to dispose of the batteries and all that. Fifth is power generation itself. There's this huge question mark from environmentalists on are EVs really fundamentally environmentally friendly. So all these 4 or 5 factors have to converge together. But the thing is, all of them have to start progressing. Of course, today they are all in different places, but at one point of time, when all of them come together, that's the point of time where everything works very well. You have a futuristic tech, very, very affordable price, scalable, absolutely emission free, and democratize power, democratize tech, then things will work. But you can't wait for power to become entirely green for you to start working on EVs, right? It'll be too late. You would have lost decades. So I think it's important for all the streams to be continue to progress, maybe at different speeds, but one fine day they'll all converge. So yes, I'm convinced. Yeah.
But you have to have combustion engines in the portfolio.
Right now, yes, obviously, because consumer demand is still there. Yeah. The fact that, like I said, lack of range anxiety, you stick to what you've been doing for years. Also, the the fuel infrastructure, maintenance infrastructure has very much been built over 100 years. I mean, you can't undo 100 years of development just because you want to get another tech. So I think it has to be, like we spoke about brands being phased out, this also has to have a smooth phase out, not a forced phase out, I would say. Yeah.
What car do you drive? What's your company car?
I mean, I have a Harrier EV.
Okay.
But once in a while I do use some of our ICE cars, Harrier diesel and
I remember when you stepped into your role at the EV side of things, that time you were driving the Nexon EV.
I still have it.
You still have the same?
Yeah.
So driving the car also gives you a stronger understanding of the product itself. You become a consumer, which you can then feed back to your engineering team. It's a roundabout way of coming to my question. A lot of your consumers also have issues on quality. Okay. Now, whether for better or worse, or maybe it is overhyped, how do you take that? Because obviously quality is not your department. How do you take back to your engineering team and address those things which may be true, may not be true, I don't know. But how do you take those back and get that address from engineering and then communicate back to the consumers?
Yeah. Firstly, I would say, I think we are using our own cars gives us a first-hand experience. We are one of the most, and I'm not saying because I'm in Tata Motors, we are one of the most receptive companies when it comes to feedback about our own products. We know because we are one of the youngest manufacturers of cars, right? If you look at how long we've been making cars, we know that we are still moving towards where other manufacturers are. We are moving very rapidly. Probably there are certain areas where I always say that 97% we over-index our cars, over-engineer them, over compensate them. But those 2-3% of areas which really stand out is what gets talked about, and we are very, very receptive to getting feedback about that and changing. Also, the way the portfolio is developed, we have some platforms on which we have developed products, and we've not always had the liberty to start from zero on a architecture or a platform. We did that with Sierra, and you can see the impact. So I think we should look at Tata Motors as a company which is transitioned very fast, which is very open to getting feedback and improve. But honestly, I would say that it's one of the hardest trials, knowing, you had that famous Avis, campaign which said we are number 2, but because of that, we try harder. It applies for Tata Motors, So yes, we are very receptive to know where we are wrong. We also accept that we are wrong. At the same time, we very earnestly work on it. There is no other company where the speed at which any escalation works, you know, we have departments where we manage this, and we are very conscious about this, is what I would say. Yes, we people who drive the cars internally give immediate feedback, and it is acted upon. Every single internal feedback is responded saying this is why it has happened, this is what we're going to do to correct it. And I also would say that Tata Motors is much more under scrutiny than other brands.
Yes.
It is I would say, double layered scrutiny. One is Tata Group itself is held at a higher standard, and then Tata Motors probably has that reputation, and so even more higher microscopic analysis is done. But I think, like I said about electric vehicle owners holding us responsible, all this is going to help us become even stronger in the future. And it's something that we are happy to wear that thorny crown, I would say. Yeah.
Being part of the Tata Group,
Yeah.
how does it benefit Tata Motors?
Firstly, I think the brand itself, Tata brand, you cannot talk enough about how much of benefit it gives us. That trust, that love that we get is immense. Also, we have access to many things, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is consumer data, ideas, best ideas from other companies. It is immense, So I think we would not be what we are if we are not part of the group, is the way I would say it. Yeah.
Your next big thing, which you've announced also, is Avinya. Avinya is not just one car. It is a whole brand which kinds of tries to bridge the gap between Tata Motors at one end and Land Rover on the other end. Where are we with Avinya, and what's the vision behind that?
Yes, I think this positioning is something which people read it. We have never explicitly said
so it's
that it'll be a bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is an inference from many people, not only you, I would say. But yes, it is going to be an independent brand. We have shown 2 concepts so far.
Yes.
And the fact that we invested in the second concept means we are serious about it. In fact, we've gone ahead and announced saying that in the calendar year 27 is when we launch the Avinya. It will be launched as an independent brand and will have probably a independent way of selling as well. And it will be, I would say, an international car. Can be sold anywhere in the world, and will have technologies and qualities at that level. Yeah.
And are you still sticking to EV only for Avinya?
Yes. Avinya will be an EV only brand.
Okay. And that is something that's going to be global in your scale and ambition.
Yes.
Okay. The concepts that you showed were very radical. You couldn't call it a sedan, you can't call it an SUV, you can't call it an estate.
Shooting brake, as you said.
A shooting brake.
Yeah.
And you earlier, when you were driving here, you talked about how your favorite body style is an estate, and not like a sada estate, but like a nice, powerful, butch-looking estate. How important is the marketing role in the launch of an all-new brand? And very few people get the opportunity in this day and age to launch an all-new brand. Today, getting to launch an all-new product line is a very big deal. But like a brand is like once in a lifetime.
Absolutely. It's an absolute privilege to be able to do that. And in automotive space, nowadays it's become a little easier, especially with the Chinese companies coming across the world. When you say every day there's a new brand of automotive company. But in India, it's still going to be a challenge because automotive is very strongly associated with heritage, with lineage, so it's going to be a privilege as well as a challenge to make people understand what this brand stands for, what can it give to you. When you take away the fact that it doesn't have a track record, how do you convince customer that something which is starting from zero can actually be something worth looking into? So that's the challenge part of it. The exciting part of it is the radical designs, the tech, the ability that we could really showcase the world-class appeal that it will have. So yes, it's challenge as well as excitement. Yeah.
When do you get time to breathe? You've just finished with your Sierra launches late last year in December, basically. We are in Jan, and you already have the Punch update. You will have the Sierra EV sooner rather than later. Is just one into the other. How big is your team? And, do you take time off? How do you take time off?
I mean, it's something that we evolve. I think we evolve into this kind of pressure. You just look at people above you and feel that, okay, if they are handling so much, then I should be able to handle this. But at the same time, I think, yes, it is a 24-hour, 24 by 7 role, and the auto industry itself in India has become extremely competitive. I mean, of course, it's much more competitive in China, but if you go back 15 years, auto industry could operate on its own rhythm. The consumer was not driving the rhythm. Now the consumer drives the rhythm. If you're not up to speed, the consumer will reject you. I was just telling somebody earlier today that in our industry now, if you're not trying to move forward, you will move backward. So that is the reality. Plus, I think we in Tata Motors are ambitious. I think we have still not achieved our potential. If you look at different metrics in terms of how consumers consider us, how much they love us, and if you look at our market share, I think we can do much more. We can fill portfolio gaps. We can do better in terms of building consumer confidence, in terms of service, in terms of quality. We can also fill gaps in pricing. We spoke about Avinya, we spoke about new products. So when you look at all that and layer it on an intensely competitive industry, I think that gives you fuel to be constantly available and constantly do work. At the same time, I think it's not that bad. If you manage time well, you can take time off. I mean, end of December, I did take time off, and it's a company which doesn't disturb you when you're in your break. It allows you to manage your own, schedules and time pressures. And I'm not talking only at upper hierarchy. Even people do take breaks, even at at the individual contributor level. I would say it does. Consciously push people to take vacations and leave. There's a system where it's seen who's taken how much leave, and we do push people to take time off. I think it's a good balance. The good thing is, like you said, launching new brands, working at a different level of cadence, back-to-back launches. It's an opportunity, right? How many brands give you this kind of opportunity to be involved in launches, be involved in product development? And Tata Motors is a very, very flat hierarchy. Everybody has exposure to everybody else, both parallelly and in terms of hierarchy wise. So the kind of learning people have is immense. Add to that that's entire culture I spoke about in terms of lack of, rather I would say no fear of failure, ability to verbalize your ideas. I think it's, like I said earlier, Maruti was a great university. Today Tata Motors is, I would say, university of learning in real life. So I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
That brings me to my next question, which is careers.
Yeah.
You as the chief commercial officer, in your departments and the departments that you handle, what are the career opportunities now? Say a young kid going through college, what should she or he be studying?
Yeah.
And what can be their career progression?
I'll first talk about opportunities under me. First, obviously, the marketing side. And marketing is becoming more and more fragmented. I would say you have the creative side, you have digital, you have marketing tech. Which is on the crossroads of technology. Not even IT. I would say software development, and applying traditional marketing metrics, which is the future.
Like what? Give me an.
I mean, like you get personalized ads, right, on your social
yes.
media. How does that happen? I mean, somewhere somebody knows that Sirish is interested in racing, and he's served racing content, and also maybe ads related to maybe sneakers, or maybe related to something to do with automotive. How does that happen? It's a combination of technology where data about you is analyzed, and marketing where the right messaging is given to you. So the whole thing is about giving the right message to the right person at the right time. It should not be served to you when you're busy doing something else. So probably tech understands when Sirish is in the mood to receive ads, and you receive ads, and then probably you. So that is Martech.
Sounds scary.
Yeah, it is, but it's also the reality we go through. Each of us go through every time. And I always get surprised, even if I utter a word, that anything related to that is served to me on social. So that's the reality. So that is one side. But you also have more traditional areas. Like product development. Where it's a lot of Excel working, consumer understanding, taking traditional consumer metrics and understanding where consumer tastes are going. Today, there was a time when I joined Maruti, the powered window was a feature, moving from a traditional window to powered window, internal adjustable ORVMs were a feature. Today you have cameras, So just understanding and breaking down how to ladder your products, what feature to give in which product, how many variants to have. That's more than a science now, so it's massive. You also have roles in after sale service, where you can start on the shop floor servicing cars, but then it's one of the key money earners of both the manufacturers as well for the dealers. So there are careers there. Then you have, you have this entire, I would say, area of network management, where do you reach, how many outlets do you need, what is the design of the outlets, how many people are needed in the outlet. So network management is as well a skill. So yes, there's a very wide variety of roles available.
What is the hot new thing? Martech?
Martech is a hot new thing. It's been around, but more and more. I wouldn't say it's hot new thing. It is imperative, I would say, because you can't just get away by putting full page ads or television commercials anymore. You have to be smart tech is what I would call it now, not just smart tech, because you have to be smart and give the right message to the right person.
Finally, Vivek, I want to end with a SWOT analysis. So what are the strengths at Tata Motors?
Agility and, like I said, no fear of failure.
Weakness?
Weakness, lack of confidence.
Opportunities?
I would say immense, all around. Like I said, we have huge talent pool. We have a very wide market, not only in India, across the world. We just have to, the opportunity is to scale up, I would say.
And threat?
Threat is, let us not, complacency, I would say. We are growing very fast. We should not sit back and say that, okay, we have grown, let us take a breather. Because like I said, today, if you are not focused on moving forward, you're going to move backward.
All right. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, like always. But this has been really eye-opening, enlightening. There are a lot of things that what you do, I did not know. I did not know about the different kind of areas and avenues that you all think about and how things come about. So it's been really interesting, Vivek. Thank you for your time. And thank you for watching and listening to the podcast. If you have any questions related to Tata Motors, related to what Vivek said, drop it in the comments. We'll get Vivek and I don't think, Vivek, you'll have the time, but I'll get your team to
No problem.
get you those questions and answer those. Thank you, Vivek.
My pleasure, Sirish. Thank you for very different kind of questions. I had to rack my brain and discover myself to answer, but thank you. Yeah,
Thank you very much. And thank you for being so candid and open, Vivek.
my pleasure.
All the best.
My pleasure. Yeah.